Thank you. It's very fun to be here with all you young moms. There's so much life and energy here. And it's fun to just hear you talk about your kids and remember when my kids were that age. And I love your theme, A Beautiful Mess. Yes, that's exactly what it is. So we're going to talk tonight about raising kids who are fun to live with. Now, some people think all kids are fun to live with. Those are the people who don't have kids. And you know, there are quite a few people who don't have kids. One government website said 6% of women trying to have children cannot. And I heard another statistic, 7%. And sometimes, you know, men can be infertile, or various reasons. There are people in our communities who would love to have children. They long to have children, but for some reason they can't. And they look at our families and think, oh, I'd be so happy if that were me. If I had those kids, I would take them on outings. I'd read them books. I would teach them everything I know. We'd have so much fun. If only I had kids, I'd never be lonely. Life would be so meaningful. If only they knew, right? I mean, it is that way some days or some moments. Yes, we have wonderful, meaningful moments with our children. But then there are those other days. My best friend from high school has 11 children. One day, 7 of them had stomach flu. That was not a fun day. And there are lots of things about mothering that just aren't much fun no matter what you do. But it can be more fun than many of us make it. And so I want to talk tonight about some practical things that we can do to help our children grow up to be more fun to live with. Now, you have a handout that has A, B, C, D, E on it. Is it the green handout? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to start, if you just flip it over to the blank side on the back, let's figure out where we are starting. Think of each of your children, and don't use their real names. This is just for you. You don't want anybody to know your little secret code here, but just do each of your kids and give them a score. On a scale of 1 to 10, how fun is this child to live with? Now, some kids are a 10. I mean, they're just like sunshine. You can't wait for her to wake up from her nap, and Grandma and Grandpa always want to take her for the day, and everyone just loves to be around this child because she's just a delight. And then there are the ones who are pretty much hard work all the time, and you just can't wait for her to go down for her nap. And whenever you need a babysitter, everybody's busy, and for whatever reason, this child is just difficult. And some things we can't do anything about, you know, some temperament, some illness. But I think tonight we could raise each of those scores, 1 or maybe 2. And so I'm going to throw out a bunch of ideas to try to help you raise each kid's score by something. But before you turn the page back over, we need one more score. Can you guess what it is? On a scale of 1 to 10, because we just heard in our really, really good devotional that we teach by modeling, yeah? On a scale of 1 to 10, how fun are you to live with? Now, I bet that you are more fun than you realize. Just don't you sometimes turn chores into games? Yeah? Make a race out of it, or sing a song while you're doing something. What do you do to make daily life fun? Ah. Okay, have little prizes for them to earn, yeah? Sing songs. Dance. That's great. Dance around the kitchen. That's great. That's really, really good. How about tell jokes? Yeah? Why did the teddy bear not finish his supper? He was stuffed. You got it. He was stuffed. And why did the bicycle not stand up? It was too tired. And here, this is the best one. My kids came home with this when they were little. What did the 0 say to the 8? Nice belt. I love that joke. I just love it. And jokes are a fun way to share to enjoy language, and just give your kids something that they can tell their teachers or their friends or their grandma and grandpa or something. Kids love jokes. So I think by just being a little more intentional about making daily life fun, we can be, the psalmist tells us to rejoice in the Lord, and our kids look at us and say, oh, that's what it's like to be a grown-up. And we want to show them that life is good. God created a good thing when he created life and families, and there's a lot to enjoy, a lot of beautiful things to enjoy. So we can model that for our kids. Okay, but the big question tonight is, how do we help our children be more fun to live with? So the first blank at the top of your green handout is modeling, that we want to model. We start by modeling. All right, then A is affirm each child's uniqueness as a creation of God. Affirm each child's uniqueness as a creation of God. It's more fun to live with people whose personalities are thriving. And if you envision each of your children as a little garden, and God has planted fascinating plants there, and it's our job to nurture them. We also have to pull weeds and do some pruning. But, isn't it easy to get out of balance and to get so focused on the weakness and the problems that we want to overcome? It's just like we spend all our time weeding and pruning, and we forget to be the sunshine and the water that helps them blossom. When you affirm and delight in your child, what happens when your child draws a picture and he gives it to you and you put it up on the fridge? He wants to give you another picture because he's thriving because you're delighting in his artwork. So when we delight in our children, that makes them want to blossom like flowers. And of course we have to discipline and correct and all of that, but it's just important not to get so obsessed with that we forget about the flowers. And here's the thing, we're never going to raise perfect kids. Greg and I raised 3 kids, and can you believe not one of them turned out perfect? And my parents, bless their hearts, tried really, really hard, but never got me perfect. How about your parents? Did they ever get you perfect? We're never going to get our kids perfect before they leave home. So let's just enjoy them while they're here. We do our best, but let's enjoy them, because I'm just about an empty nester now, and that comes sooner than you think. So these are precious, precious days that you have them home with you. If we obsess about the weeds, our kids will think of themselves as nothing but a weed patch. Then even the potential flowers will wither and die. But if we affirm their strengths, they'll grow strong enough to manage, with the grace of God, overcome their weaknesses. There's a little book called Soar With Your Strengths by Donald O. Clifton and Paula Nelson. Opens with an analogy of a forest. So all the forest creatures got together and made a school, and brought all the little forest animals to go to school, gave them a pre-test to see where their strengths and weaknesses were, and then assigned them classes. Well, the rabbits, for example, scored very low on swimming, so they were assigned to have extra swimming lessons. But they scored quite well in hopping, so they just didn't even have to take that class. Well, what happened? They got totally frustrated because they had to spend all their time trying to learn something that God never intended them to do, and they never got training in their specialty, so they never became Olympic hoppers. Now, this applies to specializations, maybe athletic or artistic or musical skills, special skills, or to be an organizer or a leader or something unique. I'm not talking about basic daily life skills that everybody needs, like eventually everybody does need to learn how to tie their shoes and clean up after themselves and read and write and wait their turn and say please and thank you. The basics, everybody needs those. But specializations, forcing somebody to try to get good at something that is their weakness, well, that's just frustrating for everybody. Let me tell you an example of our middle girl, Britta. She has very obvious strengths and weaknesses. Her strengths are creativity, a bright, quick, creative mind. Her weakness was that she wasn't naturally organized or disciplined. So when I never did teach her to clean her room, and it was so difficult for me because I myself am a messy. So when I would walk by her room and it would be total chaos, I would it caused me terrible anxiety. I would want to scream at her because that was my own weakness, and I just wanted to say, no, you need to overcome this. And we would work at it. I brought lots of books to show you. Sandra Felton's books, the old classics, The Messy's Manual and When You Live with a Messy, really have good things that apply to parenting and have really been helpful for me. You can look at any of these after. Well, when Britta entered 6th grade, about a month in, we got a notice, would we come for a conference? I walked in and felt like there was a sign, bad mother, on my forehead. And all the teachers were sitting a little half circle, and we walked in. Well, it seemed Britta was missing assignments. Had we checked her backpack and her locker to see the state of them? Indeed. I wanted to say, you think that is bad? Come and look at her room. Well, I assure you we did work at this. We tried very hard, and we got some systems to help her cope and manage this. But here's the thing. God kept telling me, don't break her spirit. Don't stifle this artistic, creative little being I've made. So like I'd give her a chore, empty the dishwasher. Half hour later, it's not done. I'm ready to scold. God says, but look, she's sitting on the floor, and in the cupboard, everything's rearranged so that the white cups and the green glasses were arranged in a really interesting pattern. It was beautiful. And another day, Greg came home with some wood in the back of the truck, and Britta, would you take it around back to the back door so I can take it into the basement? Well, where's Britta? Where's Britta? I find her, she's inventing a contraption. She's got her little brother, and they've got the wagon and the weed-mobile and a 5-gallon pail and the duct tape, and inventing a contraption so that they can carry the wood around to the back door. And in both of those cases, I ran for my camera, and it helped me calm down. And I took a picture, and then I went and sat and wrote in her journal. I keep a journal for each of my 3 kids. This is Britta's, and it's very true to her spirit. This is the spirit that God said, don't be so obsessed with order that you rip out all the beads, because I put those there. And I sat and wrote. this is what I wrote about. Here she is inventing a contraption with Jack, and there's the red truck, Clifford. And so I wrote, Britta the inventor, challenge, carry 2x4s from Clifford around to the basement door so Daddy can build our new project room. Response, most people would just pick up the wood and carry it. You thought of a way to rig up the weedmobile in a bucket, actually 5-gallon pail, duct taped together so you could roll the wood down the hill. How brilliant you are. Now, as I'm writing this, I am visualizing achievement for her. I'm seeing she has a capacity that God could use someday. I wrote, you will make life better for people by saving them from unnecessary toil. Many people suffer unnecessarily and need people like you to brighten their lives. And I quoted George Eliot, what do we live for except to make life less difficult for each other? And I also think it's wonderful how well you work with Jack to be a team. So keeping the journals for the kids helps me settle down and think about now what's really going on here. What good do I not want to miss? How can I bring out the best in her? And and then here's when she was 13. And I wasn't able to say all this in the moment. You know, in the moment, you can't always it's not always the teachable moment. But sometimes the moment provides a story that you can teach from. So here she's age 13. Yesterday, I was waiting in the car for you. We were late for something, and you came up to the front passenger car window. As you did, you paused to make a design with your finger in the frost on the back car window. I said, Britta, did you forget we're late? Or are you being rude on purpose to make others wait for you? Neither one. I was enjoying life. Innocently, truly. I said, is enjoyment the highest good? She said, if the highest good is not enjoyable, what's the point? Well said, my friend. You are quite right. The highest good must be enjoyable, or how could it be good? And then I quote the Shorter Catechism. What is the chief end of man? To glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And one way to teach ourselves how to enjoy God is to practice enjoying the good gifts He gives us or makes available. Frost on the window is a good thing. You are very good at enjoying the beauty around you, entering it playfully, tasting, touching, jumping in with both feet, swimming in the joy, dancing in the goodness. You inspire me to notice and enjoy more good things. Thank you. And I'll tell you something wonderful. There are even higher goods, richer rewards, better things to enjoy. Now I'm teaching her here, this is a deep principle, that there's levels of goodness, and we should always choose the higher. We should always let go of the lower for the higher. One of them is to show kindness to another person. I know you've tasted this joy. Enjoying the moment is always possible, either by grabbing the goodness or by letting it go so we can give goodness to someone else. Keeping a promise, for example, being on time. Then I quote Robert Frost, the woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep. The joy of keeping a promise lasts longer than the joy of lingering in the woods. But in moments when there's no promise to keep, the highest good is to enjoy life in the moment. Well, that's a lot of philosophy for a 13-year-old girl, but she has it here in her book, Forever. And she responded well to this, and I learned from her how to live more in the moment. And by not battling with her, by not killing her spirit, she knows that my heart is for her good. And she trusts me, and still, she's 23 now, and still comes to me for help, trusts me, shares with me her struggles and her victories. But I don't like to talk about battles. I used to talk about choosing my battles with the kids, but I don't want to win at their loss. It's not a win-lose thing. I want to bless and help and equip them. I'm their coach, not their opponent. So I think if we see ourselves as a coach coming alongside kids, not as being in a battle with them, that's a better metaphor. Now, she graduated from college last spring and graduated in music composition, used her creativity. She had to put on a senior recital, and my husband and I just were amazed and praising God to see what he had done in this little girl who couldn't keep her backpack organized. What happened was her strength, her love of beauty, her creativity got strong enough to make her a strong, confident woman. And her love of beauty motivated her to get organized. So she organized 65 classmates. She composed a ballet, a little orchestra piece. She had people singing. She had conductors. And she got them to rehearse. She got the whole production organized and put on a beautiful show because she was motivated to be who God made her to be. So if we help our kids get confident in their strengths and be motivated by what drives them, that will give them reason to get their life together, to get their act together. Even the place where she lives, now she's in a darling little house with 2 other girls, and they keep it so cute and well decorated and organized. Even her room just looks so nice because she delights in decorating. And that motivates her to keep it clean so that it looks good. So I tell you the story to encourage you. Your children's weakness, they'll be able to manage it, but just don't squash their strengths. Be gentle with correction and generous with affirmation. Affirm their strengths and they'll grow strong enough to manage their weakness. So that's one way to raise kids who are fun to live with, by affirming their strengths, A. Another way is B, build sibling harmony. Build sibling harmony. This is so important because it's the foundation for getting along with everyone outside the family as well, especially people who are different from them. I have 6 little suggestions. 1, 0 tolerance for cruelty and teasing. Teach that we're on the same team. The car analogy might work. You know, if one tire attacked another tire, the whole car would be stuck. But if we build up each other, then the family can go someplace together. So the family is the same team, the same unit, the same vehicle. And if we're cutting down one part of it, then we're ruining the whole family. On your handout, I have the verse, Proverbs 11:17, which is a good one to teach kids. Your own soul is nourished when you're kind, but you destroy yourself when you're cruel. Number 2, set them up for lifelong friendships with each other. Help them to see that they're going to be each other's best friends for life, or good friends for life, not by forcing them to hold hands after they fight, or just that makes it worse, I think. But don't tell them sibling rivalry is normal. Lots of people say it's normal, and it probably is, but I don't think we should tell them that. I think we should tell them that God gave them each other as gifts to help take care of each other all their lives. Long after we're gone, they'll have each other. So I think it's good to document harmony, document times that they get along. There were lots and lots of moments our kids did not get along. I didn't document it. I just documented the ones I want them to remember so that when they look back on their childhood, I'm sort of editing their life story for them. I record the stories that I want them to remember that are the ones that I want them to identify with. So here's Betsy was maybe 5 and Britta 2.5. And I wrote in Betsy's book, Last night you were out in your garden picking the last of the tomatoes before the first frost. Britta ran out in her pajamas to help you. She started crying because her bare feet were so cold. So you took off your shoes and gave them to her. You have a truly loving, generous, beautiful heart. You bring joy to our lives. So that's such a sweet memory. And when Betsy got married and Britta had to give the toast, she told that story. So, you know, one day your kids are going to come to you and say, I got to think of some stories and give a toast at my sibling's wedding. Help me remember. So it's good to have some of these documented. All right, 3, sidestep rivalry. Don't post the score. In John 4, the Pharisees posted the score between John the Baptist and Jesus regarding who was baptizing more people. Well, Jesus just backed away. And he did the same thing in the inheritance debate. He just didn't play that game. So I think we need to be careful not to compliment one child at the other's expense. Not say things like, oh, you're so much easier to take shopping than your sister. Or not to criticize one to the other, or let them hear you criticizing them. And don't let them hear you criticizing them either. I mean, don't let them hear you telling your friends how much work they are. But especially not criticizing each other. Number 4, teach them to harmonize. Make home a place where activities can happen together. There are games, you have to think of them though. There are things that kids of different ages can do together, like drama. If you have a costume closet or a costume box, they can make up plays together. That's something kids could do of various ages. Or music, even with improvised instruments. I remember when our kids were first old enough to be left home alone, Greg and I went out on a date and came home, and the 3 of them had put together a little song, one on piano, one on guitar, and one on drums. And that was just, wow, such a fun thing to come home to. That there they were playing together. What other things do your kids, you have kids of different ages, what can they do together? Or where can they go together? Are there places you can take them that kids of different ages like to go together? A playground? Yeah, for most ages, yeah. At a playground, they can all play together, do different things. What else can families do together to play together and have fun together? Swimming, oh yeah, that's great. Exercising going to a health club or something, that's great. Everyone can jump in the pool, have fun together. Simon Says, oh fun.
Stand on like an outdoor mat.
Okay.
And that's like home base, so we say you have to hold the ball and run around the furniture and come back here. And then Simon Says, hop all the way around the furniture. Everybody has to do like a crawl on all fours.
Fun, yeah, okay, out in the yard, Simon Says, and have kids hop. Okay, bring it inside, yeah. How about blanket forts? Yeah, there are a lot of things that getting the older kids to come up with creative ideas for the younger ones, but really encouraging them to play together is fun. Our family, the day after Thanksgiving, the women go shopping on Black Friday, and I used to tell my husband to put in a lasagna at a certain time so we wouldn't have to get back in time to make supper. It was the year that Krispy Kreme opened, whatever year that was, like 10 years ago or so. The guys took all the kids to Krispy Kreme, and they all came back with hats. Well, they got a little silly. Their hats inspired this. And then, so they were, as they were putting dinner on the table, they got dish towels on their arms, and they decided to color mustaches on, and then they put on this big fancy thing about serving us. Oh, well, it was such a hoot and so much fun that the next year, my husband said, don't tell us what to cook, we got this. And they spent the whole day with all the kids of various ages, going to Goodwill and Salvation Army and getting costumes and then getting groceries and putting on a whole event One year they made an airport theme. One year it was a Baptist potluck, a Southern Baptist potluck. It was hilarious. One year it was Narnia. We came home to Narnia. One year they were all pirates, 2 pirate teams, and they were having a cook-off. This year we came home to Woodstock. They were all hippies. And by now, so there are 20 of us, and 5 of us go shopping, so 15 left home. My 88-year-old father, down to now the youngest is my 7-year-old niece, but they play together. Everybody finds something to do to make this happen, you know. And it's just wild, but it's such a bonding thing. Like, all my kids will not miss Thanksgiving. Everybody has to come home for Thanksgiving. All of the cousins, now they're bringing their spouses and their boyfriends, and but Thanksgiving is the time not to miss because the whole family plays together. So, you know, having little traditions, even simpler traditions like that, give the family kind of a sense of fun identity. So if something like that starts to happen in your family, let it go. Make it happen. Okay, 5, be fair and humble. We're back to avoiding sibling rivalry here. Realize it is easy to favor a child. I remember my girls pointing out to me that Jack was getting by with fewer kitchen duties. So I paid a little closer attention and realized, yep, he was. So I tried carefully to rectify things, not to get him mad at them for telling on him, but we do have to just realize we're human and we tend to get out of balance, and so we have to be humble about that. And then 6, fill each child's love bank. Do you know Gary Chapman and Ross Campbell's book, 5 Love Languages of Children? That's a really, really good book. But if a child feels loved, they're less likely to think that their siblings are stealing your affections. So that's one way to have kids be fun to live with, if they're getting along with each other and knowing that they're loved. Okay, so now on to C. C is covet-proof your kids. Covet-proof. Coveting means wanting something that wouldn't be good for us to have. Kids who are always begging for stuff are not fun to live with. You don't need me to tell you that. God created us with a desire, with desire, because he wants us to desire him. It's natural to desire. We come equipped with it. And then education is a process of aiming desire, of training it up. At least that's the old classical definition of education. C.S. Lewis in The Abolition of Man quotes Aristotle saying that the aim of education is to make the pupil like and dislike what he ought. So we're developing their taste. We're letting them know what's good and what's not good. That's a classical education. And it's a big deal. We're not talking about something inconsequential here. Do not covet is one of the 10 commandments. You shall not desire things that are not right for you to have, or that wouldn't be good for you to have. And Jesus says in Luke, this one's on your handout as well. This is great in the Message version. I think kids can really understand it once they get a little older, probably. Get yourself a bank account that can't go bankrupt. A bank in heaven, far from bank robbers, safe from embezzlers. A bank you can bank on. It's obvious, isn't it? The place where your treasure is the place you'll most want to be and end up being. That puts it pretty clearly. It's very important that we develop a taste for heaven, that we want heaven, that we want goodness, truth, and beauty. But you know, we live in a culture that makes junk food really, really tasty and then stirs up our desire for it with brilliant commercials. So, and that's junk food literally and figuratively. Junk in the culture, and it's just made so attractive. And our kids are like compasses in a magnet factory. It's like, oh, I want this, I want that, I want that. Oh, that looks really, really good. I've got to have that. And all these messages come at them. It's hard to get their attention and aim it at, here's what's really worth wanting. Not easy to do, but the younger you start, the better. A little one, if they're after a shiny steak knife at the edge of the table, all you have to do is take it away and hand them something else. Their attention span is so short. As their attention span grows, you need to work harder at it. Let me tell you the story of the day I wish I never stopped at that garage sale. Jack was 10, and we were on our way somewhere and had extra time, and I saw a garage sale. I said, oh, let's just stop. So I'm pawing through the purses and the exercise DVDs, and he finds a Nintendo set for $18. And we had told him no Nintendo. This is not a story about Nintendo. I'm not making a judgment on that. But when Jack was 16, we let him get a part-time job, and he earned money and bought himself a PS3. But he was 10 at this stage, and we had said no Nintendo. So he asked for it. I said no. Why not? Oh my goodness, here we go with the reasons. Then he asked for my cell phone so he could call Dad to get Dad to override my veto. No luck. So then, all the way home, but here are all the reasons I should have it. This is the child that's wanting to go to law school. He was practicing on me. Well, what are the reasons you think I shouldn't have it? Well, here's why all those reasons aren't good. On and on. I went out to the garden, he followed me. I went into the house, he followed me. Then Greg got home, and all the same thing on Greg. All day long, this child was not fun to live with. He had seen something he wanted, and he was coveting it. Well, we held out, and the next day, he moved on with life. But he was only 10, When they get older, their attention span gets longer. So it's harder work. But I really do think it's worth the hard work of resisting if you really think that something's not good for your child. We didn't want him living in cyberspace. We thought he'd be more fun to live with if he wasn't. The younger, the better, the easier it is, the younger they are. So, and sometimes it's worth just living through it, living through the unfun times. But I think there are some things we can do. Now, garage sales are good. They're cheap places to buy things. But anytime you take your kid into any store of any description, they're going to ask for something. So why do we do it? Well, we have to, at some time, do our shopping. But the fewer stores, the better, really. And try to go into stores that sell things you want them to have. So from time to time, Greg and I would do Friday night Barnes & Noble dates. So we'd take the kids and spend the evening at Barnes & Noble, everyone pick out a book and sit and read, because we wanted to show them that we really valued books. And that was good. I think it did really help cultivate their desire in books. And we would give them a little allowance, and they could save it up till the next time if they wanted to get a more expensive book. But it encouraged them to collect books, which we thought was a lot better than collecting some other things. So do think about the stores you take your kids to. I also think keeping catalogs in out-of-the-way locations. And realize that your tastes and values do rub off. I discovered on my son's iPod some of the old classic rock and roll songs my husband used to listen to, because he would listen to them in the radio in the car. And Jack developed a taste for the Beatles and all that he never would have been exposed to if it hadn't been for Greg. And Betsy fell in love with the music of Phantom of the Opera because one of her camp counselors loved it and was playing it in her tent. And Betsy admired this camp counselor and came to love that music. Well, that really elevated her taste in music a lot. When we're around people that we admire, we tend to imitate their tastes. So your kids are likely to like what you like. C.S. Lewis in The Weight of Glory, says that we don't desire what God offers us because we have no idea how good eternal life is. And he tells the story at the beginning. You've maybe heard this example of a child who was offered a holiday at the sea, but he preferred to stay in the slums and make mud pies because he couldn't imagine what it meant to have a holiday at the sea. He'd never experienced it. So he wanted to stay with the fun that he knew. So we have to expose our kids to what we want them to love gradually. And here's where I think it's okay to use rewards and bribes. Just like we were talking about offering kids prizes or rewards or bribes for doing something good. I see a place for that. One example is piano. When Betsy was little, it was boring to play her piano practicing over and over. Well, I mean, who would want to sit for 20 minutes or half hour or whatever playing, "Here we go, up a row to a birthday party"? I mean, you know, that's so boring. Who's going to sit there and practice? But you had to practice to get better. So I would bribe her with Go-Gurts. That's what she liked at the time, those little frozen yogurt things in the tube, you know, Go-Gurts. Do they still have those? So that was her bribe, and if she practiced the designated minutes, she got that. And it worked for her. It did not work for Jack. He soon gave up piano, and that's fine. But Betsy loved it. It worked for her, and it helped her get past the stage of boredom with that little reward until she could realize that, wow, playing music is fun. And then she got to play for the high school musical and be with all the kids in the pit orchestra. And it was lots of fun playing the piano. And now she's 25, and a month ago or so, she and her husband were home for a weekend. We're at our house for the weekend. I'm not their home, I guess. And early in the morning, I was up making coffee, and suddenly the house was full of beautiful live piano music. She was just playing for the joy of it. So she came to taste that goodness, but I had to help her develop a taste. So I think that we can help covet proof. It's hard to, we can't do it completely, but we can help our kids to not covet lower things by helping them develop a taste in higher things. And kids who have good taste and who are developing their talents and becoming who God made them to be are very fun to live with. All right, D. D on your handout is develop your child's spiritual potential, their spiritual potential. It's very fun to live with kids who are growing spiritually. Children are often sensitive to God and eager to invite Him into their hearts once they understand it. But sometimes then when they grow older, all the peer pressure and all the confusing things in the world they might not remember key moments of their spiritual life. So here again, I recommend writing them down. And that helps children know that they had real experiences with God. Here's what I wrote in Betsy's journal when she was 5. We were driving to the babysitting co-op at church. You said something like, "Good thing I'm being good so Jesus will take me to heaven." I tried to explain that no one can be good enough to get to heaven, but the way to get to heaven is to ask Jesus to live in your heart so He can forgive you when you're not good enough. You said you wanted to pray and ask Jesus into your heart, so we did. Now you are a Christian and my prayers answered. All the angels in heaven are rejoicing to welcome Betsy into eternal life beginning now. So I just documented for her, so she knows she had a real experience. And Jack's was recorded as a little speech he memorized to say when he was 7 in church. He said, "I became a Christian when I was 4 years old. One day I stole my sister's toy car and I felt bad. My mom told me it was a sin and only Jesus can forgive sins. She said I could ask Jesus to come into my heart and forgive my sins, so I did. Now I'm a Christian." So it's so simple to lead children. You know, they do something wrong, we explain that is sin. But we can be forgiven. So it's just so beautiful to lead your children into, to begin a relationship with Jesus, and then documenting moments. Here's a significant moment from Britta when she was older. The kitchen is beautiful. All the dishes are washed, dried, and put away, in spite of the fact that the dishwasher was full and running. You did it all by hand, without being told to and without complaining. When I asked about this miracle, you said that Jesus was in the kitchen with you and he told you to do it, just like the pastor talked about in church this morning. Wow, that's just about all I can say. Wow. Who am I quoting there? Lily and her purple purse. Wow, that's just about all I can say. Wow. Jesus said, anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love them and we will come to them and make our home with them. I can see God lives in your heart, Britta. The beauty of the kitchen is just a little reflection of the beauty in your soul. So here I'm proving to her that she actually heard Jesus and obeyed, and I'm helping her remember. So when she looks back at her childhood, she remembers these actual experiences she had. Very, very important. Larry Christensen in The Christian Family, an old classic book on how to raise kids, he says, a child whose faith consists solely of learned doctrine may have that faith badly shaken when it collides with rival doctrines in high school and college years. But a child who carries about within him the memory of countless encounters with the reality of God will not have to worry about holding his faith. His faith will hold him. Isn't that good? Yeah, so we need to encourage our kids to actually experience God, to actually pray, and then pay attention when God answers. And teaching them God's Word. I love this, when my kids were in preschool, the Rhyme Bible. It has the stories from the Bible in rhyme, so it's really easy to memorize them. And kids love to hear them repeated. So I really, really recommend this book. It's fabulous. And so we had a way to make our kids more fun to travel with in the summer. I would put together a little collection of memory verses for them, and that's how they would earn their spending money. I'd put them in these like photo holders, and then we'd buy them postcards along the way too. And if they would memorize them, then they could earn money, and they would always know there's some gift shop coming up. So downtime when you're traveling with kids was great because they were busy wanting to practice or be tested so they could earn their next dollars. And this was just a wonderful thing that made family vacation also more meaningful for me because I felt that it was giving them, that they were having some depth too, that they were, and sometimes we would do things that were related to where we were traveling. Like we went to Washington, D.C., and we saw how money was made. And so here's a postcard of coins. And then the verse, Hebrews 13, 5 and 6. Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have. So sometimes they were related. And we saw the Statue of Liberty, and the quote at the bottom, give me your tired, your poor, is in here for them to learn. And boy, that day, it was a miserable, hot day. And the lines to see the Statue of Liberty were miles long. And everybody else it seemed like their kids were just being so miserable because everybody was irritated and hot and bored. And they were just going crazy, all these families standing in line. Our kids, we had 3 kids and only 2 adult testers, and they knew there was a gift shop in there. And they were like, test me now. Okay, it's my turn. And they were totally attentive, focused in on learning their Bible verses. It was great. So, and Jack had in there the story of David and Goliath from the Rhyme Bible. And one of the lines is when David's trying to convince the king that he should go out and fight Goliath, he says, God will be with me, David said, and then the king nodded his head. It's one of the lines. In the following summer, Jack had swimming lessons, and he was scared because he had to go up on the diving board and he was supposed to jump in. And this was really scary for him. He came home and told me about it. He said, Mom, I was up on the diving board, and then I thought, God will be with me, David said, and then the king nodded his head, and I jumped. I thought, yes, God's word came to him and helped him in a real crisis. It was a real crisis for him, and God came. So I wrote that down for him, and it's so fun to live with kids who are experiencing God. Wow. So, I drop anything to do that. It's just so exciting and so important for their lives to really pray and ask God for things, to really try to learn some scripture and then live it and help them remember it by documenting it for them. All right. Our last one is E. Encourage character growth. How do kids know what's right and wrong? When I'm talking about character here, I'm talking about moral character. How do they know when they have a dilemma? How do they know what to do? Well, maybe they know some rules they follow, but more likely they have stories in their head and characters in their head, and that helps them envision what to do in situations. In God's word to us, we have 10 commandments, but we have lots and lots of stories. God teaches us, he develops our moral character by stories. So I think reading to children is crucial, and showing them good movies. But choosing the stories that they hear will really influence their ideas. And they need to see that evil is ugly and that goodness is beautiful. I recently discovered this book called Tending the Heart of Virtue: How Classic Stories Awaken a Child's Moral Imagination, by Vigen Guroian, an ethics professor at the University of Virginia. He spoke at the University of Minnesota in October. And he says that children have to be able to visualize goodness and think, well, what would certain characters do? So it's really, really important to introduce them to good characters at whatever ages. This Little Pilgrim's Progress, I really loved. And I loved it so much that I thought afterwards, I should go read the adult version of this great classic. And I tried it and I couldn't handle it. It's just like, whoa, this is really thick stuff. I went back to this one. I love this book. And it's so nice at the end of the day to read to your kids something that feeds your own soul as well as theirs. So I highly recommend this. It just has a little, each chapter is so short, like a page and a half, so there's always time for it. And it's really, really good. And one of my favorites that I just gave a copy, I think this particular version is out of print, but I found one online and gave Britta her own copy. She just turned 23 on Saturday, because this is such a precious book. It's The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. And you'd have to read it to young girls, but it talks about what is it to be a true princess, and it's so, so good. Anything by George MacDonald is good. And of course, the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis are wonderful. What are some books that your preschoolers are really enjoying some titles you could share with each other? Yeah. Little House on the Prairie, yes, very, very good. There's that great scene in there where one of the girls jumped up to do the dishes, and it shows children being really helpful around the house. It's great. What other books, or do you remember from your own childhood, that really help shape your character? Oh.
By Lamplighter Theater and Lamplighter Publishing.
Teddy's Button by Lamplighter Publishing.
It was a book from, I think it was written in 1762
Oh.
or something.
Oh, and copies are still around?
No, they find these old books and they republish them.
Okay.
In more modern English and that kind of thing, but my kids love it.
Oh, that's great. And how about Little Women? Do any of you have girls old enough for that? We didn't start that actually until later, like in high school, and I wanted to read to Britta, and there were so few nights that we were both home and had time to read a chapter that it extended into her college years. But she came home a couple Christmases ago and said, we are going to finish that book this time. And I really profited from that book. And it's good for older girls too. It's really, really a lot. In the original, not the abridged version. I mean, those are good, but they're just missing so much. There's a lot in the original. So good books and good movies. My son, who's 20, sent us a letter home from college. He's a sophomore in college, and just really coming into his own. It's just so fun to get letters from him. Here's a letter he wrote earlier this fall. He said, I rewatched Amazing Grace, which I remembered you guys doing. Do you know the movie Amazing Grace about Wilberforce? And I learned a lot of things from it. 1, movies are extremely powerful, usable for good and evil. 2, a characteristic I greatly admire and want to be present in my life is the willingness to fight something you strongly believe to be wrong, regardless of the effects to your health or popularity. Yes. 3, I want to find a woman like Wilberforce did. He acted out of character to do what he thought right. When he found a girl who admired that and shared his passion, he married her. Oh, that just blesses my heart as a mother to read that. So, he remembered us watching that movie, and I'm glad. I'm glad he knew that we loved that movie. And that another one that we shared was Invictus, about Nelson Mandela. But helping your children discover really good movies or stories, and then also telling them their own story. And so in journals that you keep for your children, you know how kids love to hear about their own lives. You can tell them the lessons they've learned, and then that becomes for them an ongoing guide in their life, lessons that they themselves have learned. So, it does take a lot of work and thought and creativity to raise kids who are fun to live with, but not only will daily life at this stage be more fun, but you're going to have these people in your lives for the rest of your life. And so all the investment that you put in, you'll enjoy, because they'll be confident about who God made them to be, because they've been affirmed, A. They'll get along well with other people because you've helped them, B, build sibling harmony. They'll not be greedy or materialistic because you've helped them covet-proof their hearts, C, and desire what's true and good and beautiful. And they'll have a real experiential relationship with God because you've helped them develop their spiritual potential. And they'll have strong character because you've helped shape their moral imagination by reading them good books. So these are lots of ideas, and you might be just thinking, where to start? Well, try to think of one of your children and maybe one idea that might bless that one child. Might not be even something I said, maybe something God sparked in your mind as you were thinking about how all this applies to your little ones. Just start with that one step, because any step toward having kids who are fun to live with is a good step to take. And your kids' future roommates and spouses and coworkers and neighbors will all thank you for raising a civilized human being who is fun to live with. Thank you.